guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Reading Bear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we will take a look at some new Just Know HOA content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, Petty Compliance with an HOA That I Still Think About. Growing up, ours was pretty chill, and basically the most nitpicky thing they ever did was tell a neighbor that they needed to cut down a tree that was dying and tell another that their garage was peeling and needed to be repainted. My friend, however, lived in a neighborhood where their HOA was borderline draconian. His dad was always getting notices for stuff like too many cars in the driveway, or his bushes had a branch that was too long, or his property wasn't green enough. He would always get some sort of fine that he had to pay to the HOA in addition to being forced to change it. If he did, the HOA would put a lien on his house. Once again, he got a notice for his property not being green enough. He finally had enough and went to the hardware store and bought the most hideously green paints you could find and painted everything on his house that wasn't glass or brick those colors. It was very professionally done, but the color was somewhere between pea soup and baby vomit. It was hideous. He paid his fine to the HOA and told them he had made his property greener. They blew a gasket and fined him again for not complying with their request and for painting his house an unauthorized color. They also initiated a lien with the county on his house. He knew this was coming and knew that you could contest a lien if you could prove it was done improperly. He went to the judge and showed the letter from the HOA asking him to make his property greener and argued that they did not specify what part of his property needed to be greener. He agreed that when the neighborhood was built, the HOA had a say in what colors the houses were painted, but showed the most recent HOA bylaws that did not mention anything about paint or colors. The judge ruled in his favor, ordered the HOA to give him his money back for the fines related to this incident, and forbid them from ever putting a lien on his house on the condition that my friend's dad kept his house that shade of green. It has been 15 to 20 years, and it is still green. Next one is titled, Why Can't I Have 2 Locks on My Door? I've lived in 3 HO as an adult, and the one I'm currently in I am not eligible to be a member with a say because I'm renting from a family member who owns the condo. Luckily, I haven't had too many issues over the years, but paying what we pay to live in this neighborhood and being treated like school children is frustrating. It's SoCal, so while expensive, it isn't anything special. I like where I live, I like my place, and I take great care of it. When I moved in 2.5 years ago, I changed the locks, including the front door handle and lock. I switched from only having a deadbolt to a nice brushed nickel handle with a deadbolt and handle lock. The door jamb was preciously cracked, and the door had dents in it as if someone tried to kick it open at some point. It looked no less than 2 weeks for my family member/landlord to receive a letter from the HOA. There is only one approved handle for the community, and it is some obscure brand. Condos built in 1996, gold handle with only a deadbolt lock. It cost $400. So now I've got this ugly gold HOA approved handle with only one lock on it. Mind you, there's a long skinny window just next to the door that can easily be broken. It's ridiculous. I recently installed a Nest doorbell, so we'll see how long that takes to get a letter. I was written up for having construction debris on my upstairs patio. Yeah, I did some interior remodeling and had 7 pieces of baseboard up there for a couple weeks. The trash bin is only so big. You couldn't see it from the street. So one of the upstairs neighbors in the adjacent building must have reported it. Also, I have to get rid of my BBQ since my only outdoor space is a balcony patio above my garage. Apparently it's against fire code or something, and now only electric grills are allowed. I'm going to buy a Traeger since it's technically electric. The corporate management company refuses to speak to me and is very rude to me because I'm a renter. I had a loaner car for 3 weeks that didn't fit in my garage, and street parking is impossible to find. I parked in guest parking where there were no guests the entire week I parked there before I got a tow warning. The next week I called a security company about a neighbor's construction worker habitually blocking the road where our garages are, and they told me they're only contracted to enforce between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. Sorry, I've taken this on a tangent. I'm sick of being an adult who pays over $2K in rent, and I can't live my life without the HOA nanny sending me a letter. I've never complained about any of my neighbors' annoying daily habits. I only one tried to complain about the construction truck, and that didn't work out. I don't have parties, I rarely have visitors, and I live alone. The idea of an HOA is unconstitutional in my mind. I understand not wanting cars parked on the front lawn or bright yellow houses and stuff, but where I live people are generally respectful of their community. Next one is titled, Not Home. Fine, we'll just break in and change the locks. Hi all. This isn't me asking for legal advice, nor is it me asking for help of any kind. I'm just irritated and needed a place to vent. Well, I moved into a community with an HOA run by a management company. I think majority of the owners are actually investors who live outside of the state/country. In March of 2020, I'm renting and overall, the experience has been fine. Trash is picked up, neighbors are friendly, and the grounds get maintained decently. So call me surprised when I get a note on my door stating that insurance adjusters are going to be going door to door on Friday, which was only 3 days away, and if they couldn't access the apartment, they use a locksmith to get in. I'd then have to go to the clubhouse to pick up a new key. They'd be looking for damage on the inside of the units caused by Hurricane Irma, which was a hurricane that hit 3 years ago. I don't think that's legal, but I've been trying to get my hands on another copy of the bylaws. For some reason, I don't have them on hand. Probably lost in move. I called my landlord. They don't have it. I called the HOA and they told me they'd send it, but never did and have been avoiding my calls since. When I read through the rules, I never saw anything that was very sketchy like that. So I genuinely don't know if I signed and gave permission for them to basically break in if they needed access to my apartment. But yeah, so now I have to take the day off to be home, so they don't force their way to my apartment, and I'm not exactly happy about it. A user in the comments said, just tell them someone in the home is COVID positive, problem solved. The HOA should have to be going through the owner of the property to get permission and to set up a time to look for damage. I would imagine it has something to do with mold. It might be to your advantage to let them in. Black mold can be very dangerous and hazardous to your health. If he can't be there, then the owner of your property or his representative should be. Next one is titled, How a HOA Destroyed My Parents. So this happened almost 10 plus years ago, but has cemented my hatred for HOAs. My family is from Guam, a small Pacific island in U.S. territory, where there isn't much of any HOAs. We moved stateside around 2001 to 2002 when my dad decided he wanted to. My parents had good jobs and made good money and decent credit. We lived in Tennessee for a while until we drove up to Indiana to visit some family. I guess my dad liked it so much he decided to move there. Well, after my parents got transferred to their business, Indiana branch, a few months later we moved there. Our house was very modest, but a bit more extra than most because it was a part an HOA. A few months living there, my dad noticed a crack in the garage, poor foundation, and notified our builder. The HOA was still being built, so he was easy to find. The builder said he'd take a look. Come to find out that not only was the foundation poorly set, but the plot of land it was on was sinking. Ducked up thing 1. My parents were told that in order to fix it, it would cost more than their home loan because of the condition of the land it was on. The builder suggested that they pay him 25% cash of the home's value and he'll build them a new house with their current mortgage. Cut down 25% as a good faith gesture. Ducked up thing 2. As you're reading this, you're probably thinking, that can't be right. That's not legal. That's not how that works. Well, you're right, but being from a small island where you can trust someone at their word, it didn't occur to my parents to question it or get legal advice. Anyways, back to the story. So our new house is built, nicer than our previous home, and not sinking. Life is good for a while until we had to go on an extended trip due to family emergency. Luckily at this point, we've been living there for years and my parents made some friends. We would have just left, but one of their friends let them know that they needed to inform the HOA that some lawn and garden standards wouldn't be kept due to the trip. Yes, my parents should have read the bylaws, but at first they were excited to own a home, so they never did. So my parents, still thinking that a face-to-face with the HOA board would be good enough, did just that. Told them during a HOA meeting, that's it. Well, our trip took a little while longer than expected. The whole summer and part of the first school year, but we finally got home. Waiting at our door was countless letter, warnings, fines, and more fines. Ducked up thing 3. I don't exactly remember was the total was, but it really doesn't matter. My parents were broke. They spent their savings getting us to and from Guam and paying the mortgage, so yay, no back fund. My parents went straight to the HOA for answers. Basically, it boiled down to, They didn't notify the HOA of the reason for the drop in standards, so they were well within their rights to post fines and, the worst part, put a lien on our home. My parents barely covered the mortgage and the trip to Guam. They tried reasoning with them until eventually they went to court. As you're guessing from the title, it didn't go well. The HOA board hung on to the fact that my parents didn't send an email and wait for board approval. They won. My parents were forced to pay the lien while also paying the mortgage. At first, my parents were optimistic, but it got to the point where it was pay the mortgage/fines or feed my brothers and I. They fell further behind and were starting to fight about it. It became too much for them, so they had to walk away from our home. My mom was devastated and my dad felt like a failure. I was old enough to understand what was going on, but my brothers didn't know why we had to leave our home. The whole ordeal destroyed my parents' credit, wiped out their savings, and cost my parents their good jobs. Mom's job and finances required good credit, and my dad had to work closer to home because of the financial situation. I don't think there's any way they can recover from what they walked away from, but they're not fighting and don't have to choose between paying rent and feeding my brother. The whole experience made me really hate HOAs. While I understand why they are needed and in some cases make complete sense, I will never move my family into one if I can help it. A user in the comments said, "This has to be the most despicable thing I've ever read about an HOA, and that's saying something. I'm from a poor background and a poor community, so I had never even heard of an HOA until I started reading this subreddit. For the life of me, I can't understand why anyone would get involved in one, but I know that's probably just coming from my perspective of poverty." Next one is titled, "Why must HOA approve the building of a wheelchair ramp?" What I really don't get is why there isn't some blanket exemption that makes it so those of us with disabilities who are dependent on walkers or wheelchairs can build a ramp to our front door without having to wait for the board to approve the design. It's not as though this is a luxury. We are closing on a new to us home at the end of the month, and we already know that it will entail building a lawn ramp 47 linear feet, because we have a drop of over 16 inches from the porch to the driveway. The crazy thing is that even though we've already had the engineer out to survey the area and figure out where to build it, we can't even file the paperwork until after we close on the loan. And then they have somewhere between 30 calendar days and 30 business days for them to decide, all before I can build the ramp. It's a damn good thing that I am not completely confined to my power chair, because if I were, I would be in major trouble. Until we get the ramp built, I will only be able to get my chair as far as the garage, possibly the utility room, if Medicaid ever replaces a ramp that was stolen last October. Yes, as in Oct 2020, I'm very fortunate that my current home is very accessible and I can get in with only a very short ramp that was left by the thieves. It falls in the category of ridiculous. We move in on 11/7, but I probably won't have a real ramp until Christmas or possibly into the new year. They ask for a ton of elevations, showing the proposed changes from all angles. They better just be happy with the plans for the ramp, because a charity, Texas Ramp Project, is stepping up to provide all the supplies and lumber, etc. to build it, as well as expertise and assistance with the actual building of the ramp. They do incredible things with a very tight budget. Sorry for the rant, but it's just frustrating. Last one is titled, "Selective Enforcement. Why does it seem that my HOA is so selective about which rules to enforce?" Our rules state vehicles must be parked in the driveways, but street parking is a common thing. Vehicular repairs must be in the garage, but many often do it in the driveway. Trash cans must be out of view, but are often at the side of homes or in front of the garage door. The list goes on, but you get the point. I say all this to point out that these violations are daily occurrences that seem to be okay, but I've received 2 violation notices in the past year. The first one was because my trash can was still at the street on Tuesday, June 1st at 10:30 a.m. Trash day is Monday, but that Monday was Memorial Day, so trash wasn't picked up. So I got a violation notice that my full trash can was still at the curb. Today, I received one because my driveway is dirty. It's really not that bad, but cleaning and sealing it was on my to-do list. I was just waiting for it to cool off. My annoyance is that the public sidewalks in common areas are way worse than my driveway. It just seems like maybe they should focus on getting their own crap together before worrying about mine and maybe enforce all or none of the rules. Thanks for listening.